Hey everyone, welcome to 21st Century Saints, our podcast and live stream series for members and those affiliated with or adjacent to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints here in the United Kingdom and where, Alana?
Around the world.
Around the world. Okay, I'm so
now?
sorry.
Around the
That's now our
world.
new thing. Yeah, we're working on a dance for
Around the
Sunstone.
world.
Yeah, we're this is our We are really sorry. I messed up the time, so we were supposed to be going live an hour from now, but since we were all here, we figured let's just keep them on their toes. Our audience can roll with it. Our audience like, to keep things new and vibrant and get curveballs. You guys can handle it. So we're here. We're ready to go a little bit earlier than planned, but we are really excited to be able to share with you this episode that we're gonna hopefully keep to around about 30 minutes long, so that we can just quickly tell you what's been happening. Okay, before we get started, I'm your host, Jane Christie. This is my co-host, Alana Wilson-Bryce. You want to say hey?
Hi, everyone.
We've also got our favorite people in the world here as guests. We have our wonderful Queen, Sara Elizabeth. Do you want to say hey?
Hi, everyone. You right?
And do you want to tell everyone just a little quick bit about yourself?
I'm here, been a member of the church 43 years, and I've got a background history of working for 30 years within sexual abuse, sexual harm, working with victims, perpetrators, and safeguarding and risk management. And that is my interest in working on with 21st Century Saints to promote safeguarding within the church.
And Sara Elizabeth has been smashing it. I can't wait to tell you all what has been happening. We also have the wonderful icon that is Mormon Civil Wars, Peter Bleakley. Peter, do you want to say hey and tell everyone a little bit about your background?
Hi, I'm Peter Bleakley, lifelong church member until recently, but still attending. And I am a teacher, so I teach at secondary school. I teach art, which involves a lot of safeguarding training. And I've been doing what I can to support efforts to improve safeguarding in the church, and particularly motivated by Sam Young's campaign, Protect Every Child, which used to be called Protect LDS Children, and now it kind of has a larger umbrella vision for just collaborating with other religions if they want to join in, and where we can help each other. So the topic of that campaign is Protect Every Child. And I've been on the BBC a few years ago with some others advocating for that, and so on. Yeah.
And Peter has so many things to say about what's happening, not just in the world of Mormonism, but specifically here in the UK. Peter's a bit of an expert. So I would say we have 4 of us here who are all engaged in the church in different levels. The church is meaningful to us all. I'm an active member. Alana's taken a step back. Peter represents the church in exile, who is still worshipping with the saints every week. Totally inspiring. And Sara Elizabeth, who is faithful and is just this incredible force of nature. So thank you all for being here. Alana, as I come to you for some announcements, like I say, I'm feeling my masculine side coming out tonight. I feel like I'm just missing the bottle of bud in my hand. I feel like I've got my trucker look on. I am having a very bad hair day. I'm having a very bad hair couple of weeks. And if anyone's seen photos of me this weekend online, you'll see where I'm coming from. So before, this is my disguise. This is my hair disguise.
Well, Daisy said you really suit the hat.
Well, thank you. Well, I kind of, I'm fluid in the gender spectrum, so I'm having a load of fun with this. Alana, how are you getting on? You got any announcements for us, girl?
I'm doing good. I've had a very productive day. So, we have some announcements. We, first of all, just want to thank again all our donors. We have had some amazing donations. We cannot thank you enough. Every penny helps to keep this podcast going. And we honestly can't thank you enough for your donations. We wish we could come and see you personally and just give you a great bill.
We might.
big hugs. Jane might not be so forthcoming with the hugs,
Jane
but I
will.
would be.
Jane will do a
yeah.
pat on the back.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because we didn't anticipate having to set up a website. We didn't anticipate that this has become a full-time job. We're working late into the night now. And it's great. It's where our heart is. This is, you know, it does take a toll, and certainly we would normally be here every week. We would even a couple of times a week. We're having to take some, you know, days and a couple of weeks here and there just for the old mental health. So yeah, so just, you know, and I think as an independent mother, Alana, you're doing such a great job doing it, you know, pulling double duty yourself. And so for Alana, I think it's so good to see Alana being supported like that, as well as the work that we're doing. So thank you so much. And please rest assured we are putting it to very good use.
Yeah.
What else we got, Carol?
So we also have a little shout out to our Sunstone that's coming up in the UK. I just always like to double check the dates. I believe I do have them in my head, but I usually get them wrong. So it's from the 7th to the 9th of October. If you go to the Sunstone UK page, you should find all the details to get your tickets. I believe you can sign up for just one day or the full weekend.
Alana, who's going to be there?
Well, that is the thing. You have the fabulous, the most wonderful 21st Century Saints. and we also have Peter Bleakley, and we have Nemo the Mormon, and Priesthood Dispatches, and many, many more people who are going to be there.
Lindsay Hanson Park is going to be
there.
Not
name dropping.
No, but just we are kind of fangirls of people in the Mormon world. So yeah, it's going to be great. We're going to have such a good time. Our Sara Elizabeth, fortunately, we're going to meet you the day before because you have somewhere to be that weekend, but you'll be with us in spirit, right?
I'm with you in spirit. Sad I'm not going to be with you physically, but, you know, needs must.
Absolutely. Self-care. Okay.
And a little last announcement, just again, we do have the banner going along the screen, I believe. Just a reminder that we do now have our website up and running, 21stcenturysaints.org. You can find our petition within that. Everything's all in one place now to make it easier. You can sign our petition to ask for all within the church to do background checks. You also have our open letter, which we are going to send to the church, hopefully hand in person. So yeah, everything's there in that website. We will be adding to it through time. It is just fairly new, so just keep your eye out for some new things that you might see. I'm saying all this, and I don't have anything to do with the website because I'm not very. What's the word that I like to say? Is it technological? I say it. I'm not
Please
very.
Say it again. Say it one more time.
I'm not very technological.
Oh, you're my favorite. You're my favorite.
I'm not good at technology.
That website has everything, almost everything that you need to know about what we're doing. There is a massive hole in it at the moment that we're going to mention tonight. So please stay tuned because we need your help. We really, really need your help. The petition. We need you to sign the petition. The petition is asking for background checks. We also have the open letter. Alana, who's signed the open letter? Who are some of the people who have signed with us?
You're asking me. Nemo the Mormon, I believe. Mormon Civil War.
I've not signed it yet. I'm doing it after today. I'm doing it next.
Peter already said. Peter can't remember that he actually. So what we do is all we need. Already. This is all we need you to do to sign it. Is we just need you to say yes. So Peter said yes. So his name and logo are on it. Radio Free Mormon, Natasha Helfer, Bill Reel. Everybody's on there, and we've opened that up. So if you want, as just someone who's interested, a member of the church, a non-member of the church, any company, organization, podcaster, just you know, if you're just a full-time mum, if you are a crochet, I don't care what your background is. If you want your name on our open letter, asking for the church to institute safeguarding policies, just send us a message. The link is on the website, and just say add my name, and I will take care of the rest. Okay. So that's everybody's brought up to speed. Here is what we need to, and to those of you, who've already signed, thank you so much. And like I say, we do have more for you to do, but we need to talk about the response to not just to our safeguarding project. We want to talk about a lot of things that have been happening over the past few years. Most of you will be familiar with the work of the wonderful Sam Young. The torch has been taken up by some admins on the Protect the Children page. We have our dear friend Katie, who is doing incredible work there. It's so good to see how that work has been driven forward. What, if it's okay, Peter, would you briefly just talk a little bit about what Sam's work was and what impact it then went on to have?
Yeah, so he had served as a bishop, but the situation in the church is often how far people go as bishops or stake presidency members in interviewing young people. They have to navigate this tricky situation of that's right in my face. Get off, woman. Thank you.
Sorry.
That's the wife, by the way. And the sorry, it's throwing me. And he never asked in his role as a bishop, interviewing young people, any sort of intrusive questions about their sexuality or anything. It wouldn't occur to him to do so, and people have never asked him. But in most of the church, that has been completely normalized and in fact taught and expected in lots of the training people had. So there are, you know, as soon as you start talking to people in the church, there are a lot of people who've had very uncomfortable experiences in those interview situations. And there's, as in any community, there are a lot of cases of people abusing positions of power to abuse children, and at every level, really. And so he spoke to his daughters, found out that they had been asked intrusive questions, which he was completely unaware of when they were younger, got mad enough to sort of want to do something about it, and began a campaign, and specifically a petition. So it's simply a petition, first of all, to end one-to-one interviews with young people. And the second main emphasis was to stop asking intrusive questions about sexuality. And he put his own money into it. He's a guy from Houston. He was brilliant with publicity. People supported him. A big sort of team came together because there was such a need for this, and it grew in momentum. And eventually, lots of things happened. There were campaigns to kind of fly flags for Protect Every Child at the top of mountains and things. He went on a hunger strike eventually, and at sort of near the church headquarters in Salt Lake, and he kind of had a chair sat next to him, inviting an apostle to come each day to come and just talk and hear people's concerns. They created a book and a website with lots of personal witness statements from people who've had these experiences, and they presented a copy of that compilation of hundreds of accounts of people going through these uncomfortable experiences or experiencing abuse in the church, and one that was delivered to church headquarters, one for each of the apostles. And then later on, there was a march through Salt Lake City to the church headquarters as well. Again, sort of keeping up this attention and this pressure. So he's really, he's probably burnt out now, bless, but he's really worked his socks off for this. This then created some momentum in publicity between news organisations, and a freelance journalist working for the BBC reached out to him, and he reached out to British people asking if anyone would be willing to go on the Victoria Derbyshire show, which is the major flagship morning news show on our BBC News channel. So I and two others, Steve Blomfield and David Shepherd, sort of nervously turned up at Broadcasting House and was kind of ushered into this sort of machine of amazing choreographed 24-hour news. And we had an amazing interview with a wonderful young woman. There was a lot of they on their website, they'd made it kind of one of the major issues of the day. They'd separately interviewed David, Other people were interested, other media outlets quickly got in touch with David, and he was telling his story. So it actually had quite a bit of impact. And we ended up talking for a quarter of an hour. They gave us loads of time. And they also got, they reached out to the church to get a statement. So the Europe area presidency kind of issued an official statement in which they said they kind of committed, as the church does it, or was at the time in its generic statements, to seek to improve, you know, to do our best for child safeguarding, and we're always trying to do better, which was wonderful. It was kind of a commitment that the church has made globally in its publicity, not always living up to it yet, to kind of try and be the best. So that was wonderful. That was a really good experience, and that opened the doors for lots of conversations across the country. It made it a conversation piece. And then what happens, I'd say, if you want to talk about my experience now.
Well, could I get you specifically?
Yeah.
Could I get you specifically to just mention what happened to Sam, and then what happened about church policies?
Yeah. So they excommunicated Sam for this. He was excommunicated by his stake president for kind of publicly criticizing the leaders of the church, as it were, even though he was always at pains to say, this is not about the gospel. It's nothing to do with doctrine. This is not about, you know, the leadership should go or anything like that. It's very simply, we should have basic safeguarding procedures and stop one-to-one interviews.
And then what happened?
And either just before or after excommunicating him, the church then made some radical changes.
It was
for
after.
the first time ever.
They
They afterwards, they
Yeah.
coincidentally, and they insisted nothing to do with his campaign at all, announced that young people could request a second adult in the room while they have those interviews, and also started to give guidance about not asking intrusive questions in those interviews to kind of root around in young people's sexual experiences.
Now we are going to come to Sara.
Significant concession.
Yeah, we are going to come to Sara in a minute to talk about what those policies look like now. What I wanted to really make super clear, because from my heart, I believe this. The days of the church and church members having to make a choice between calling for an issue that they feel really strongly about, such as safeguarding, and I don't think there are many other issues as big as this is the one that everyone that we've ever spoken to totally agrees. We need to do all we can to protect children. We need to do more. We need to seek to continually improve. I don't believe we are any longer in a territory where either members or the church need to make a choice between church membership and seeking for those types of improvements. And I think it's my hope that, you know, it's that sort of spirit of being able to, as people who care about the church, being able to sort of say, well, look, here is what we need to tell you. I don't think you're maybe aware of some of the things that are happening here. Maybe you are, but we need to put this across to you. We need to inform you. You need to be informed anyway. It's your role. So we're happy to tell you what we know. We also want to analyse what the rules are, what are the policies that you have, and what are the policies that your country or area that you live in have, and how do we make those the very best policies that are shaped into really, really meaningfully safeguarding children. So like I say, I don't believe there's a choice. You also mentioned media. It's really important to know. I mean, whistleblowing, I have a testimony of whistleblowing. Whistleblowing plays a huge part in keeping people, organizations, institutions safe. It's really, really important. And you know, we do have a lot of media interest in what does this subject mean for us. We've also had the summer of Mormonism all over Netflix, where on some level what was a very mainstream, normal, obedient Latter-day Saint family, then suddenly horrific things happen somewhere down the road. so the media are definitely looking at us as an organisation, and the last thing I want to do is open up the newspaper and find, like, oh, what have we done now? How often over recent months has there been yet another bishop or another church leader who's in a position of trust who has been, in court for abusing children? It feels like it's constant. And certainly from all of our experience, we are being contacted and working with people who are telling us about what your experience was, and we are holders of your story, and we thank you and we honor you for your courage and bravery and trusting us with your stories, and we hope that we will be able to work towards making some kind of difference. Okay, here's what I want to ask about now. So first of all, Alana, what kind of response both of us, we contacted our stake president and bishop. So what happened with us? Because you've spoken with your stake president before about, because you voted opposed during a stake conference. What's it like whenever you speak with your stake president? So, and what's the response been here?
So my stake day, I can only say the man was wonderful. He really listened. You could tell. I always say this. That sometimes you get the vibe from people where they're shown interested in the empathy, but it's not really real. But I didn't sense any of that from him. I sensed that he was very caring and compassionate and understanding of the circumstances of what I was talking about in regards to the LGBTQ and how it had affected my family directly. So I've only had nothing but positive experiences with my stake president. Jane obviously sent her letters to her bishop and stake president a good couple of weeks before I did. I had the greatest intention of sending it, but didn't get round to it. But then I sent them a little bit later. And how is it you term it, Jane? Crickets. We've heard nothing. That saddens me. I sometimes like to try and think that possibly they're just mulling it over, thinking about how to approach it, but this has been a long time ago now. And I just think, even a little email just to acknowledge that they've received that. I've taken the time to send this email, a little acknowledgement just to say we have received your email. We are thinking and talking about it. We will respond at a later date. Just something to say that, for all I know, that email could be lost in cyberspace somewhere and they haven't received it, it's sad, but I feel still happy that I've sent the email. I've done my part. I'm doing my part. I more than likely in the near future will follow up on that. I will need to do the follow up.
I think what's really interesting from a point, what I imagine I'd be really interested in as a bishop is, here we've got someone. So first of all, I 100% believe they're talking about it. 100% believe that that there's stuff going on in the background. I genuinely do. Might be wrong, but I believe that these are good men, and I believe that they share our concerns. I do. But as a bishop or a stake president, I think if especially someone who hasn't been engaging in church in a really long time, if out of the blue I'm being contacted by someone who has been affiliated with church and has a concern, I would really want you to know that I'm doing all I can. So I think the reason I'm bringing it up is because as bishops, stake presidents, any leaders, Relief Society presidents, primary presidents, teachers, as you all start to receive this, the set letters are on our website, you're going to hear from people who are not Mormon, who have never been Latter-day Saints. You're going to hear people from your communities, other faith traditions, the media even, or indeed, as we have been told, so many active members of the church. Most of the people that ask us for advice and give us feedback are active members of the church telling us what's happened. It is so exciting. I would want to engage with those people and at least let them know that you're taking it seriously, and maybe some kind of outline for what you're going to do.
Like, I did send the standard letter because I'm not very good at letter writing myself.
Which is fine, yeah.
But I did at the bottom personalise it to why this was so important to me as being a survivor of sexual abuse, to personalise it. So that, not that I'm saying that should be reason enough, it shouldn't matter who's sending the letter, whether they have had that experience or not. But, for me, who's saying, this is why this is important to me, is it important to you to hear nothing? I'm trying to give the benefit of the doubt. I understand they're busy, they've got lives out with the church. I totally do understand, but it does frustrate me. Like, it happens a lot when I'm sending stuff to my daughter's school. I don't even get a response to acknowledge that they've received that email, and it really does annoy me, because I think you just need to acknowledge someone that, yeah, I've received your email, we'll have a look at it and we'll get back to you.
I love how that puts it really into perspective, because one of the things that, I mean, I don't want to mention this really, like, I don't like having to talk about things that I wish were better, but unfortunately it's the only way we're going to make changes is if I say, listen, there's an issue we need to fix. So what I really think has happened is that these letters get kicked up the chain, and the conversations are happening in the background, but generally speaking, we would expect a bishop to contact the state president to contact the area presidencies, all those kind of things. Guys, you don't have to wait. you can. No, it's not this whole thing. This is not a gotcha. No one is going to take your email. Plus, I mean, I don't know. Maybe would it be a bad thing if anybody said, "Hey, my bishop sent this email and it was so lovely and thoughtful"? Like, could you not be frightened of what that looks like? Because we are so closed. This is how abuse happens. But we contacted, if there are safeguarding concerns within an organisation, the procedure here in the UK, I would imagine it should be standard around the world. What one would be expected to do is to engage with that organisation by trying to contact their safeguarding officer. So we want some clarity on what the policies is. And unfortunately, the person who is the safeguarding lead for the church didn't engage, they did. They replied. Can I just say, you replied, thank you so much. But I don't get why that was kicked up to a legal department. So someone's going to contact us and let us know a bit more about what the church safeguarding policy is if we have concerns here. But you don't always have to send it to the higher ups. You can tell us what you think. So Sarah Elizabeth, could I come to you and get some of you, because I know that's actually why. Tell me about why that's problematic.
I think one of the problems you've got is the reason, and I think it's absolutely appalling that your state president hasn't come back to you, Alana. I think it's disrespectful and it's not okay. It isn't okay, and there's no way to say it is. But I think one of the problems we've got here is I think these men don't know what to say. A lot of them. We're talking about policies and procedures. They can't tell us what they are because they haven't got any. So they can't come back and tell us what they are because they're absent and they don't exist. And these men don't know what they should be doing about safeguarding, and they don't know what to say about what they're doing about safeguarding or what the church are or are not doing. There's two issues. One is, if they come back to you and say, I actually haven't got a clue, Alana, what the church are doing about safeguarding, but I hear you've got a concern about it, and I share the concern with you because I don't know either, then actually that shows that they will, in their own mind, there's a fear culture, there's the deference culture, where there's that desire to be loyal to leaders, to be obedient, to be deferent to leaders. And they will be thinking, well, in telling the members of my congregation that I don't know what the policies are, that makes the church look bad. Well, I'm sorry, the church are managing to do that for themselves, but that's how they will be feeling, that they're making the church look bad. And I think the other bit is they just come back to it. They don't know what to say. They simply don't know what to say.
Yeah, and I think at a local level that's the case. But when I mentioned the safeguarding,
I wanted to mention.
Yeah, because obviously he does know, but I think what you're saying is probably quite accurate. I think it's probably the fear that, maybe as a podcast, we're going to say or do something with it. We are not about twisting words.
No, we're not.
I don't even know if I would have necessarily brought that up if it hadn't have been super relevant to the conversation we're having right now.
Well, it's super relevant, isn't it? You email somebody who, and actually I think we need to be clear here. He is saying that he is the safeguarding lead. Yeah. He is signing letters and things saying, I'm the safeguarding lead for the church. And when you email him and say, can I have your policies then? Can I have a copy? It's like, I'm sending this to a higher up legal department. Well, in what world do you need to ask a higher up legal person to reply to a simple email saying, "Can I have a copy of your policies?"
Sarah,
That's
what should have
clear.
happened?
He should have sent them. He should have sent them. And if I don't know if anyone will remember, but I'm going to go back to the first podcast we did on safeguarding, when we spoke about the legal responsibilities for the trustees of the charity of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The trustees have a legal responsibility to ensure that the organisation has adequate safeguarding policies and procedures in place, and they're responsible for making sure that people know about those policies and are adhering to them. Now, we are working about contact with these trustees at the moment. There's letters gone. We are looking around that contact because I'm quite concerned that the trustees aren't living up to their responsibility.
Yeah.
If the church's safeguarding lead can't tell us what the policies are.
Could
So
I maybe, would it be okay if we just actually speak a little bit to those trustees, because I have tried
let's
to
do
contact you, right? I have tried. So this is a plea to members of the church, to the church itself. Trustees, if you're listening, we're trying to contact you and we don't have any contact details for you. We've got the
You've got
three
your
names of the
names.
trustees, which are listed on the Charity Commission report. You know, we could say what your names are, but I don't think it's really
you
that
don't need to do
relevant
that,
just now.
And I don't think we
If
need
you
to.
as members think that you could help, I believe you're all based in Europe, but we need to ask you guys some questions because we're trying to have a dialogue with the church, and we understand it's your responsibility to be able to answer those questions. So if you could do that, that would be a huge help.
You would think if they were the named persons, though, there would be at least an email. It's like you want to contact your councillor, right? Your local MP. You have at least an email address to contact them. So why is there nothing available on that?
It's really difficult. But what we have is a very, very clear expectation of the responsibilities that the trustees are personally responsible for. They're responsible, and I really want to know if they've done this. They're responsible for reporting to the Charity Commission any incidents of safeguarding or any instance of concern.
Yeah.
Now, I'd love to know if they've done that.
Well, what I can tell you is they're what I can, say is that they're not, none of them are from the UK.
No, they're not.
They don't live in the, as far as, I mean, we can't find them at all.
From what we can tell. And they're not on a church email address because it bounced back. So they're not on the standard church email address for most employees and most people of the church.
Yeah, but we do need to ask you, because we're trying to shape this policy, and we do need to have a conversation there.
The other option is there is the lawyer who is listed on the Charity Commission, and that would be the next person we will need to go to. But we would rather have a direct discussion with the trustees to say, this is your legal responsibility. Here's the information of all the things that you're legally responsible for. One of them is about the safeguarding policies and procedures. The other is to ensure that you are aware of any incidents of safeguarding concerns within the organisation, and that you report that to the Charity Commission to ensure that that is properly processed and dealt with effectively. And they're also responsible for making sure that the church are adhering to DBS procedures and safe recruitment. Well, I don't see how they can be doing that when the church aren't doing it. So the church aren't doing it. So the trustees aren't doing their job. So where's the Charities Commission role? And that's our next discussion, isn't it? Is what are the Charity Commission? Why are they not being significantly concerned about the trustees of this charity that are not fulfilling their responsibilities? So that's a route, and we're just putting it out there that is a route we are going down at the moment. We are concerned, and we are going down that route at the moment.
So what we'd like to do is kick this up a notch. Yeah, Peter,
so
I was going to come to you.
So can I just say, so I think if you were just coming to this conversation, sort of a typical church member, this would sound like some alternate reality. Like
this is what I wanted to ask you about.
And so on, So we're used to a priesthood hierarchy managing the church, that you have bishoprics in a ward, stake presidencies in a stake, and we have an area presidency for the Europe North area. And that's usually what we think, and they're accountable to, the 70 and the apostles. So this idea that there is this separate legal entity of technical trustees of the church in Britain who kind of sign off on the financial statement that the church gives to the Charity Commission, which you can find every year on the Charity Commission website, kind of feels like, hang on a minute, what's all that about? Because we assume that the real power is with the area presidency. So I think what I would just say, so what we've all identified here is there are concerns in our church about safeguarding. There are efforts to sort them out. It has been very difficult to actually pin down responsibility, particularly where there are issues per country and locally. And you guys have made a really intense and sincere effort to actually engage in dialogue with the people who are legally responsible to the government for the British Church's safeguarding policies and what's going on there. That this is actually a component of our in a sense the license to function as a church in Britain.
Absolutely,
that we have a legal responsibility, and I think that would be gobsmacking.
Peter,
to a
could
lot of
you
people. They'd be
underline
completely
that?
unaware of that.
What you
Yeah.
just
It's
said,
100%.
could you really underline that, please? Because
Yeah.
it is
So
so
you know
important.
this. So it's just the fact that there is already legal obligation on the church if it wants to carry on being an official charity and having tax exempt status and so on. It's not a freebie. It comes with responsibilities that they have to make the financial declaration, which can be quite revealing. That's a whole other conversation. But the safeguarding is a component of that, which I was completely unaware of until you guys sort of started speaking about this. And of course, with Sarah's professional experience in this field, to highlight that. So I would just suggest then we all agree, or we're agreeing amongst ourselves, and I think most people would agree, this is a concern. I think leaders of the church, including the area presidency, should be a bit worried right now because they haven't got their act together with the systems of accountability here or for meeting those legal obligations. And this isn't an issue that's going away, because what we've also described is there is an endless series of cases of senior clergy in our church abusing children and young people, and at times, like my ward, for example, we moved here in 2014, but
Well,
just
actually,
before that,
Peter,
and I was
could I get you to
working in the
speak?
town.
Could I get you to speak about the specifics of that? Because what I really want to highlight here is that we're all engaged with the church, like we're members of the church, and we're really bloody worried about our church. I am more worried about the people who have experienced abuse.
To propose.
Right. I mean, I if I had to make a call, which I don't have to do, but I'm more worried about the people that are involved in these cases of abuse, and I want our church to be doing better. This is supposed to be, this is an attempt for a positive dialogue here. Sarah Elizabeth, you need to say something.
Can I just say, I've just pulled up my letter that I've written to the trustees, and I've just reminded them of their responsibilities and asking them if they will please tell us how they are fulfilling a discharge in these duties and what is their due diligence around it. And the legal responsibilities that they have are to ensure safeguarding policies, procedures and measures are fit for purpose and up to date. Get this one, you're going to love this one. Making sure everyone in the organisation is aware of their safeguarding responsibilities and knows how to respond to concerns. Fail, LDS Church. Have a lead trustee for safeguarding and child protection, challenging any decisions which adversely affect anyone's well-being, managing allegations of abuse against someone involved in the organisation, reporting serious incidents as necessary. That is the legal responsibility of the trustees of this church. They are not fulfilling that responsibility because not everybody knows what the policies are. So exactly. just in that in itself, they are not doing it. So we need to urgently get these trustees to understand the legal position they're putting themselves in by failing to fulfill their responsibilities, and make sure the church actually don't throw them to the wolves because they're not doing something.
So we need to kick this up a notch now. We need to talk about the things that the church itself and that members themselves are getting right. Peter, you were just about, I can't wait for this, but Peter, could you, first of all, this is good news from Sara, by the way. Could you talk about what your experience was? You were going to talk about your previous ward and you're going to talk about your existing stake. So tell us about it.
Yeah, so I've been teaching in the town that I live in now for many years, and we moved here more recently. But so and we were living only one ward over, so we were very conscious of what was going on in our congregation, sorry, in the congregation in the town we live in now, and just an awful, horrible experience that the serving bishop was found to be hoarding and making child pornography, and was arrested for it and imprisoned. And that was a kind of massive wake up call for the stake, as you would imagine. And this does happen in quite a few congregations fairly regularly. So this isn't a one off by any means. But it's obviously an existential shock when it happens in your own congregation, that someone you trusted and sent your children in to be interviewed by alone turns out to have those issues. The family and the church responded brilliantly. They immediately insisted that he go to the police and confess, and there was no doubt at any point or any effort to cover that up, which there certainly has been in countless cases in the church. So they did their best in that awful situation. It has an impact, of course, devastating for that family, and for the family of the church community. So I was sort of on the fringes of this because I wasn't a member of the ward at the time, but aware, had close friends who were all being impacted by it. There'd been concerns growing in our stake for a long time that our safeguarding was inadequate. And I think this is one of the sort of positive solutions we can offer, is in an average stake, there are loads of people with professional experience here who in their workplace, like me as a teacher, receive professional standard child safeguarding training, who are background checked, have here in Britain it's DBS checked, which is an enhanced police background check, where even if accusations have been made, even if they were never convicted, regarding that might be relevant to child safety, that is passed on to your employer, and so on. And we have in our stake particularly, we have some people who deliver that training, so they're extra professional. And I think in most stakes you'll find someone with that expertise.
Call
So
them out. What's
they,
your stake
yeah,
is?
yeah.
Canterbury
My
stake,
state's
right?
Canterbury stake, yeah.
Well
And
done.
so, for example, the wonderful woman who is now our State Relief Society president, she was co-founder of a fostering agency, and a sort of a private fostering organization with the goal of kind of doing it better than the usual systems. So she was already all over safeguarding with very vulnerable and difficult children, of course, and delivering that training. And she and others would just kind of look around at a typical ward, and there's kids running around everywhere unsupervised. People we don't know anything about, who are investigators or even members, just turn up. They're around. They're immediately extended a lot of trust, um, and it's just a safeguarding nightmare, and it comes a cropper quite regularly. And they, for a long time, have been raising concerns about, we need to do better. We can't carry on like this. It's just too dangerous. And of course, having the situation with the bishop just proved that. And there was another case as well, I believe. So with a high councillor. So we had a new stake president come in, and he very specifically wanted to kind of move forward with this. They had already got together and started working up a prototype safeguarding policy for the stake. It hadn't been fully implemented yet, but they had been working on it. This kind of coincided with Sam Young's campaign and me appearing on the telly and so on. And I was having some conversations with the stake president. So he very kindly kind of let me have some input from my teaching experience to add provisions and wording to that policy that they were working on. And these other people who are much more qualified than I am also had done a brilliant job on it. So we all, contributed our bit to try and make sure that it was up to scratch. And then they created a policy for our stake, which goes much further than the standard church one. It didn't go as far as banning all one-to-one interviews. The stake president felt he couldn't take that step because it was really going beyond the church's general policies. So it wasn't quite Sam Young standard in that sense, but obviously a lot of encouragement to do that and be more sensible. But the key provisions, the things that really are the two things that anyone can do anywhere, you don't need to wait for authority from above to do it. You can easily organize this in your stake. Are first of all to do police background checks for everyone working with young people, and to have annual professional training, that everyone will attend proper training sessions with a professional trainer in safeguarding. And the reason this is important is as follows. The church at the moment has a 20-minute video that expects people to watch once every 3 years within a few months of being called to work with children.
Which is
And it's completely inadequate.
It's
and it's a
presented as a
cartoon,
cartoon. Yeah.
and basically its only message is don't be alone with children, don't be alone with children, don't be alone with children. And that's pretty much it. While totally ignoring bishops still and their councillors and stake presidencies still being authorised to go alone into a room with children and intentionally talk to them about sexuality. So it's a farce. You know, there's no way to be nice about that training, because it gives the impression of having safeguarding.
Yes.
It's not adequate.
Yes,
So
and Peter, actually, that point is what we want to re-emphasize, this impression that we have of safeguarding.
Yeah.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to
a safeguarding system.
So
what you get from a professional training is you get all the lots of detail about different kinds of abuse, neglect, emotional abuse, physical, and all of that. What to look for as signs, how to cope with the disclosure, and I think this is the most important thing that is massively missing from the guidance and the training. This is so essential, that when a child discloses to you, you need to know what to do. You need to know how to handle that, how to remain calm, and particularly how to not ask any leading questions or think it's your job to start investigating, because the second you do that, you could completely screw up a court case to bring a perpetrator to justice, because you've, in a sense, tampered with the witness. And then the next essentialist thing is, you know, who the safeguarding specialist you are meant to pass that situation on to is, and that they have had professional training. And even then it gets meta, that you have mechanisms that if you're not happy with how they handled it, you need to know who the next person up the chain of authority is to raise concerns about an issue you've reported not being dealt with properly. So there's a pyramid here of responsibility. Everyone needs to know who those people are. And you walk into any parish church in Britain now, all of that will be on a poster at the door.
So speaking of posters at the door, actually, this is something. So what I want to do is we're going to come back and do a quick fire FAQ in just a moment. But Sarah, can you talk to us about posters at the door and what your news was?
Right. Well, posters at the door is something that has to be happening. It's critical, isn't it? Right. I have had some really good news in the last week or so. In the last week, since last Sunday. No, since the 18th of September. When was that? That was a week before last Sunday. In that I emailed my stake president a few weeks ago and said, I have these concerns around safeguarding, used the template letter, but added various other bits and pieces in it that I wanted to share with him. And I think I'm absolutely winning at leadership roulette in the church at the moment.
Are you feeling comfortable to say which stake he is stake president of, or do you want to just?
No, I'll just leave
That's
it.
Fine.
It's not rocket science.
But you know who you are, stake president. Right. We love you.
I do.
You're awesome.
Right. Well, that's what I want to come to. I've never met this stake president, because there were boundary changes recently and we're in a new stake. I've never met this stake president, and his first communication from me, and I don't know what he may have heard from my previous stake president about me, but his first communication from me was, I am really not happy with what the church are doing and this has to change, and can we talk? And I had an email back the following day, which was absolutely fantastic, because this is an incredibly busy man, not only in his professional life, but in his personal life and his church life. And he took the time out to email me straight away to say, I do take safeguarding seriously. Please, can we meet? I'd like to meet with you and listen to you and talk. We met, and he didn't rush the time. We met for an hour and a half. Then we met a little bit later that morning for another hour. There was no sense of this being rushed, of him not having the willingness or the time to listen. When I met with this man, I was impressed, very impressed, that he came across as a man of integrity, of compassion, of a willingness to listen, and a willingness to hear what I wanted to say. And he was quite happy to sit and listen to everything that I wanted to share with him. There was no defensiveness. There was no batting it back. It was, okay, you shared a lot of things, and we had a really good discussion about that. I came away from that conversation having told him that I really wanted us to have a relationship of trust so that we could work together. I came away from that conversation feeling really hopeful that we really know there are some good people like that state president that want things to be good, that want to know that the very best is being done, and wants the church to be doing the best it can be doing. I came away confident that he has a good understanding of the safeguarding concerns and issues that are around, and that he's willing to make sure that things are good. So I came away feeling hopeful, and that was great, because we've spent weeks and weeks and weeks mired in difficulties and challenges and frustrations and heartache and sorrow as we've sat with victims, as we've listened to hours of people's pain, and the frustration of listening to people that think, oh, there's no problem. And it was really heartening to actually come across a leader in the church that really was willing to listen. It was great. That's great. And I love it. And I love that man. I love him. I respect him. And I'm grateful to him. I really am. I really, truly am.
Sara,
The concern I have is we still aren't doing it.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that in a second. Yeah, we've had some pretty fun meetings this past couple
We've
of
had some
weeks.
great meetings this week. And
Tell us, who was our favourite?
Okay, let me just tell you about a meeting that I have in a couple of weeks, in case I forget. Remember, we were sending letters out to our elected members of parliament. Well, mine has come back to me to say that she had read my letter of concerns of some of the examples I'd given her of safeguarding fails in the church and what the church aren't doing and what they should be doing, and pointing out there's a congregation of this church in her constituency, so she ought to be concerned about this. And she came back and said that she'd like to meet with me to discuss this in more detail. So we have a meeting on the 14th of October, which is a fabulous opportunity to get her to recognise that she needs to start looking at not just the fact that this isn't happening, but the fact that this lack of safeguarding in the church is being allowed to happen because the government aren't monitoring it effectively. So we're going to have a discussion on two levels with that. So that's going to be happening soon. But Jane, we had a fantastic meeting this week with one of the children's charities, National Working Group. They're quite happy. We've spoken with them. We met with them. We met with their faith leader, their chief executive officer was very keen to get their faith leader involved with us as quickly as possible. They met with us. They shared our concerns about the issues that we were discussing. And they were really keen to work with us and with the church, and to work as well as anybody could together to try and bring things to a good point, weren't they?
Yeah, it was really, positive and exciting.
We got an invite onto their podcast. So that's going to be a good one.
And we reciprocated, actually. The person that we were chatting with is incredibly cool, and we would love you to meet them. But yeah, so what I need to do, I'm going to be called away in just a few minutes. So we need to go quick fire now. Yeah. While the response that we're getting is fantastic, it's so exciting, and church members are hugely engaged in it. Local leadership are hugely engaged from what we're hearing, stake presidents. It's so good to see that everybody's sharing our aims and concerns. Our website has been off the chart with traffic. We're so honoured. Lots of people aren't quite ready to commit to doing something like signing a petition you can do that anonymously. So we're having so many people going to look at our petition repeatedly and are feeling a bit uncomfortable because as a, that they might somehow be being disloyal if you sign the petition. It's all good. We understand. We completely understand. And if you're not there yet, you don't have to be. But one, you can do it anonymously. And two, your leaders do need your feedback. And if you're worried and you think what we're asking for is a good idea and it's something that you feel that you can do, we would really encourage you, pop your name on, because it helps us be able to show, look how many people want this to happen. Look how many people, and you don't have to be a member of the church. This has been across the board support. Here's a quick fire things that we do get back though, sometimes in the comments and sometimes just having a chat. So Sarah Elizabeth, you mentioned that the people that we hear from, that we've spent time in, there can be an impression that these people are just angry ex-Mormons.
No, I think they're not. I think that isn't true. I think if you talk to the average man on the street and ask them what they think should be the basics of safeguarding with anybody working with children, they will be very, very clear that you should know whether they've got a conviction for working for abuse of children. They will be very clear that they should be trained and they should know what they're doing. And anybody knows that. We are hearing from people that are friends, family members, the charities that we've spoken to that are coming back to us and saying it is absolutely right that you have an expectation that your church are doing this, and this is what we would expect an organisation to do.
Peter, just angry ex-Mormons?
I'm a livid ex-Mormon, but on this, there's work to do. We can all, still have conversations with each other. We can talk objectively about this issue. I think whatever your disagreements might be about leadership or policy or doctrine or whatever you want to get into, I certainly think that protecting children is something there should be no argument about and a lot of easy common ground. So just have those conversations. As Sara said, there are plenty of reasonable, intelligent, thoughtful leaders in our church who are absolutely sincere and want to do the right thing. I think a lot of them have no idea how bad and inadequate our safeguarding is. And it's ignorance as much as anything. I think there is, of course, the culture absolutely. And there is also the culture in the church of deference to authority and not doing anything off your own initiative locally. Because even though the scriptures we were taught in seminary say, be anxiously engaged in good causes, you don't need to wait to be told what to do. It literally, God gives you permission to just do the right thing. And I'm really pleased that lots of people are modelling that now.
Peter, that point actually is something that I'm going to come back to in the next, because that is huge. Alana, the people that we're supporting and spending this time with, are they just angry ex-Mormons?
No.
Simple as that. No, they're not. And many of them,
they're in pain, they're hurting because they've not been protected.
Oh my goodness. And in addition to that, just as many are active members of the church in your ward, in your stake. There are so many people who have experienced abuse in one of its forms. So many people. Okay, here's the thing, and it's kind of alluding to what Peter's saying. Most people who have suggested that things are that all is well in Zion feel that we've got a prophet. If there was anything that the church needed to do, it would come from on high. So they're kind of waiting to see what happens.
Well, there's a problem there, isn't there? Because it's not coming from on high, is it? And we've got a middle, it's almost like, if you look at it in employment structure, we've got a middle layer of management, which is our bishops and stake presidents, that are only too willing to want to work and make sure children are safe. But the higher up management aren't moving. They're not telling them to act. They're not giving them permission, and it's getting stuck, which is why I come back to I do believe what they do, not what they say.
And so it's that deference to leaders thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's clear though as well. We've talked about this before. If they use their own scriptures about how Jesus feels about harming his children, it's there in black and white. It's not saying necessarily in plain writing to them, do good safeguarding, but it's there in black and white about harming the
Well,
children of
it
God.
is saying, it's saying
does say
anyone
Say it,
who,
Peter.
harms a
Do it
child.
if you can.
yeah.
Like,
Well, the scriptures are crystal clear,
Yeah,
and
let's hear it.
the people Jesus wanted to put a millstone around their neck and throw
Yeah.
them in the sea were people who harm children. So it's an
Absolutely.
it's a
harming
prime
children.
directive of
Yeah.
Christianity. It's a prime
And
directive.
we,
And you've got the worth of souls is
and
great in the
we're
sight of
responsible.
God.
Yes, yeah.
yeah,
We've
we've-
got all the doctrinal stuff we
It's
need to know.
doctrinal.
I
The
think
story
as
of the
far
Good
as-
Samaritan.
I think as far as sort of analysing the attitudes of the First Presidency and the 12 and so on, and who make church policy, they do respond to negative publicity and campaigns and objective views. They budge slowly. I think the whole case around the Arizona case, where it's very clear that the helpline that bishops in Canada and America are told to call. In Britain, there are lawyers employed by the church to be your helpline, so it's slightly different. But certainly in most of the cases being dealt with in America, that it's absolutely clear that that helpline is there to minimise the church's legal obligation and not to prioritise protecting children. And there are cases going through the courts now where church leaders, local and at headquarters, knew that sexual abuse of young children was ongoing, but because they could get away with it legally or thought they could, they were telling the bishops not to report to the police, and adamant about that. And that,
Peter,
so that is the disaster. That is
and
we
we've
can't ignore
spoken
that
about this in previous episodes, but could you speak to that
but at
specifically?
the same time, the church, where there is a legal obligation to do these things, does it. So it's already doing it. So we can be mad at the church as an entity, as a total institution, as a senior leadership, the First Presidency, allowing that to go on, which is an abomination and speaks for itself. But at the
my
same
next
time,
question,
where
though,
there is a legal requirement, the church, the same people, the church in Australia, in California, in Pennsylvania, it's a legal requirement to do police background checks.
Sarah, I
So they
know
do
you
it.
want to jump in
So they
here,
do it.
so
They just do
could
it.
you hang on
So
to your
it's
point,
already
because it's
happening.
really important. Peter, not just where mandatory reporting is important, but another frequently asked question that we have gotten is, but my bishop does report, or I have reported, or we know instances where reporting has happened. And that, so I guess I'm summing up the question with, that was not my experience. Could you speak to that?
Yeah. And I think this is very frustrating because, when I've had conversations about any issues with my local leaders, the response is often, but we don't do that. I'm not doing that. And they'll get extremely defensive because they're seeing it as a personal criticism. And I just keep saying, I know you're good, you're doing great, wonderful, but it's not national, it's not international. And we are all members of a global church. We are part of a big family. It's the safety of yourself or your children should not be any different in our church because of what country you're in or what state or what jurisdiction. And the church is trying to kind of present it as ethical, that they meet the minimum legal requirements wherever. But if you actually are intrinsically ethical and you have universal, divine, Christ-like values, it doesn't matter what the law is. You will find whatever the gold standard best practice wherever it is, and that's what your church will do everywhere.
Yeah.
And that will be your church policy. It shouldn't vary ever.
So I do have some more quick fire that I need to get through just super quickly.
We're all responsible to make that happen globally.
Exactly.
Even if your local leaders are great, they'll be released soon. So
Sara,
who comes next?
That's what I wanted to speak to you about. So globally, we're here in California, my country, my state, my area. They do fantastic. Canterbury State has got great safeguarding.
Do you know that makes it worse? Can I just say Ireland are doing it? I'll come back to that. Ireland are doing it, and you cross the road into Northern Ireland and they're not doing it. It makes it worse that the church are able to do it, because if you know it is a legal expectation and you are able to act to fulfill that legal responsibility when you're forced upon to do it, then that actually says you don't care about doing it. You're just doing it to fulfill the law, not to care and protect for the children. What is that scripture? That shame upon me, I have forgotten it from the days of seminary. The scripture about to whom much is given, much is required.
Much is required. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, the church actually have this knowledge, don't they? They know what they have to do in countries where the law requires it, and they're able to act and they're able to do it. Why
no question
can they not?
Of doing it. Yeah,
absolutely. Why can they not take that same knowledge and that same understanding and apply it to other areas to say, you know what, we are really going for the gold standard here because we know this is the best we can do.
Yes.
There is no other explanation, is there? To whom much is given, much is required. They have been given a legal responsibility to do this, and a moral. I've said before, it's a morally bankrupt position of the church for them not to be doing everything they can to protect children. You cross the road in Ireland, you're in the north, you're in the south, 2 minutes apart from each other. One area they can do it, one area they're not bothering. And it's the not bothering bit that worries me.
Can I just say, I think there's another cultural assumption or something embedded about being incredibly stingy, like, oh, it would cost money. You know, it's effort and money, and that's why we can't do it. And I hear that excuse a lot.
Peter.
Let me finish, darling. Thank you. Sweetie.
Go for it, my love.
Yeah. So you know, we know now that the church has hundreds of billions of dollars sitting in the stock market. Money is they could have whatever the most expensive possible safeguarding policy imaginable, they could afford it. So that's not an excuse. But also you can get it all for free. So in Britain, DBS checks are free for voluntary organisations. Also in Kent, and I believe most county councils offer this, they will offer free professional child safeguarding training for your staff for free. The government will do that for you, the local council. So this is something that if you don't have the in-house talent, I mean, so far the training I've experienced has been by members of my ward because that's their job in their secular work. We're spoiled with professionals who can do it.
Yeah,
but
we're going to come back
to get it from the county. Bishops, you can get all this for free.
And
DBS
from charitable organisations,
Anyway,
so
guys,
what we need to do,
who needs to get to bed, so if we can try and really
we
start
need to super
wrap up,
wrap up.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
So what I need to do, so first of all, we need to wrap up the final couple of questions, and then I'm going to get some final thoughts and the future and what's going to happen next. So just on that, Alana, I just want to come to you. Canterbury Steaker, getting it right. Do you have any thoughts? Yeah, they've a good safeguarding. Yeah, they've got a good safeguarding thing in process. Any thoughts? Nah. It's okay.
Like
you don't have to. Alana needs to get her daughter in bed.
I know. Do you know what I'm like? The fact that I'm stressing now because she should have been in bed 10 minutes ago, and I'm really trying to stick to routine.
Do you know what I'll do? We'll wrap it up.
No, I was just going to say, I think it's wonderful that they're doing it. I think if one state can do it, then why can't the rest of the states do it?
Yeah.
You know, I think people sit in that fear of, but the church aren't saying to do it. But if that one state has taken it upon themselves to do it, it just models it for other people to say, well, we can just do our own safeguarding policy within our own ward. And hopefully by modelling that, the church will then see, well, look how well this is working, and it will continue then. And they might.
No one's going to say you can't DBS check your people. You know, if you're determined to do proper safeguarding, who in their right mind is going to say no, you can't do that? I mean, that would be, you know, you'd have to be pretty messed up person to start. So local leadership feel empowered to do it.
You're right, and they should. But I guess the point that I was, and Peter, you did allude to this, is you know, this is all very well until you get a new stake president or until you get a new bishop. So that's the issue that we have.
My sum up point is simply, you can get all this for free. You don't even have to apply for budget. You just approach the local council's resources. You can get free training, just like the teachers do. and you can get the DBS checks taken care of. But also, my stake president doesn't, in a sense, want to be part of some dissident revolution and so on, but he has said any stake leader from another stake who contacts him, he's more than happy to just give them our policy. So that best practice can be shared. So don't worry about having to make one from scratch and all the aggro involved with that. We've got a really good one. You can get it for free from just contact the Canterbury Stake President, and you should be able to get those contact details through the church network.
And we're
And
going to
then
come
you've
back to
got
that.
one
But
off the
Peter,
shelf.
okay,
Yeah.
here's a quick question for you. But we're members of the church, we're volunteers. We're just volunteers. Is this we're not trained
Yes.
clergy, and we pride ourselves
Yeah.
on the fact that we're not trained
Yes,
clergy.
on the
Peter,
amateurness,
then
yeah.
Sarah, have you got some thoughts?
Yeah. So the answer to that is simply the volunteers in every charitable organisation working with young people that is anyway responsible, which is nearly all of them, DBS check their volunteers.
Yeah,
It's
I
that
was a
simple.
volunteer working with vulnerable
There-
children.
yeah.
I had to be checked.
Yeah. There is no I can't think of any denominations of Christianity in Britain that do not do
Ooh.
watertight child safeguarding.
Well,
And Sarah's got a list if you want to hear the list.
Well,
Just quickly, I come back
You know,
to the charity
yeah.
that I was working with for counselling for myself, the Moira Anderson Foundation, who help children and adult children who have been through children, you know what I mean, like adults who have been through sexual abuse. And when I brought this to their attention, that we do not have proper safeguarding, and this was going back a few years, and I said, we are not background checked working with children, and they were flabbergasted. They're like,
It's
how are they getting away with this? They were so
absolutely.
shocked at how that is allowed. They're like, it should be happening everywhere, volunteer, charity, whatever, it doesn't matter.
right, Sarah, what have you got for us?
Do you want me to go run through a list?
Well, whenever you said you had a list, Peter,
Wow.
Peter was sounded very excited.
very
earlier on when
excited.
you
Well,
mentioned
you like
it.
lists, don't you, Peter? Well,
Oh,
tell me, we might have given the game away here, but tell me, what do all of these faith communities in the United Kingdom have? Alana, be quiet. What do all these faith communities in the United Kingdom share in common? Quakers, Church of England, Church of Scotland, Catholic, Seventh-day Adventists, Methodists, Baptists, Community of Christ, Evangelical Alliance of Churches, which takes into account Pentecostal, Evangelical, God of Prophecy, Assembly of Churches, Islam, Sikhs, Christadelphians, Judaism, and Hindus. What do they all have in common in their faith communities? They all share something.
They DBS check everyone working with their young people, obviously.
Wow.
Like anyone
Peter.
would.
And
well
that is
done,
exceptional.
Peter. Well done. Who was missing from that list?
Jehovah's Witnesses and us, and we're both
Actually-
in deep trouble.
And Jehovah's
Trouble.
Witnesses, there's a question because it was recommended that they actually started doing it, and they are now looking and they are making some efforts to do that. So even they're actually moving a bit ahead of the game now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I just think
that's how far
they're just
behind we are.
I think this is so important for all church members to recognise. We are real outliers here. We're not in the mainstream at all. We are absolutely at the bottom of the embarrassing pile of shamefulness when it comes to basic safeguarding. And it would be so easy to do it. And the church does it. Where in Australia, everyone has to have a blue card and checked, and they can't go near a classroom until they've got it done. But the church's own policy is that you can be serving for several months working with young people before you even watch the 20-minute video. I mean, that's how lax it is. It's not a policy. So don't let anyone kid you that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has a safeguarding policy. It has an imitation, but it does have it where it's legally required. Suddenly it's no trouble at all.
Okay,
So
I'm going to
think
get you
also,
guys to do this super fast. This is a final question, and then what we'll do is we'll get to wrapping up. So we have a handbook, and it lays out the procedures, and we have a website, we have a training video. When members have completed this, they're feeling really good about it, and they're feeling like we have a safeguarding policy. Could you guys speak to that just briefly?
That's the problem, isn't it? We're convincing people that all is well, and we're telling people it's all in hand, and you're trained, and everything is okay.
So
And
you're
people
saying it's
believe
not
that.
all in the handbook?
It's not in hand. It is not in hand. There is insufficient information in the handbook. There is insufficient training. There are insufficient policies and procedures, and we are leaving our bishops and our stake presidents extremely vulnerable because there is a legal requirement in this country that if you ask somebody to work with children or vulnerable adults and you allow them to work in that capacity, if their name is on the disbarred list and on the barred list, and they are not supposed to be working with children or vulnerable adults because they are barred from working due to concerns, convictions, or court orders, you commit a criminal offence if you allow them to do that work. So the next time a bishop turns around and says to a new member of the church, because they want to nurture them and build their faith and build their testimony and their relationships and give them a calling, go and teach the youth, go and teach in primary. If that person is on the barred list, that bishop is committing a criminal offence, and the church are throwing them to the wolves by not giving them due diligence and the power to do their job effectively.
Peter, the stuff that happened after Sam Young, the policies were changed, were tightened up, and now we've got stricter policies in place.
They were stricter because they used to be utterly dire. Now they're just very dire. So
Well,
that's a
can I
bit of
just go back
progress,
to
isn't
when
it?
you said
But-
the church
but-
can
yeah.
ask for an adult to be present. They can ask.
Yeah.
It's not that it's mandatory that they have
No,
someone
no,
else.
And
They can ask.
yeah, and what is incredibly worrying about that is it puts all the responsibility on the child.
Yep.
It says the child can request. It says nowhere that a parent can. It doesn't talk about any responsible adults. It totally undermines parents, that policy. And it's
Well, what
expecting the
8-year-old is
children
going to have the savvy
protect
to think,
themselves. I know, exactly.
I'll ask my mum, can
And-
you come
and-
into the bishop's office
yeah.
with me?
And predators are going to go for vulnerable people. They're going to go
Of
for the
course.
people who haven't got responsible parents keeping an eye on them,
Absolutely.
and won't have the
Absolutely.
psychological or confidence or self-esteem or strength to insist on protecting themselves.
Yeah.
In an atmosphere where they're brainwashed from very young to trust the bishop, to sing songs about how lovely the bishop is, and he's
Well,
like everyone's granddad, you know. It's the whole thing is a playground for paedophiles, sadly, like the Boy Scouts of America was, and it has now been excoriated. The church, the Roman Catholic Church, absolutely its credibility destroyed because of its inadequate child safeguarding and covering up abusers. And the same journalist who blew the lid off them is now going at our church with every good reason to do so.
Oh, yeah.
He's a Pulitzer Prize winning
He is.
journalist, and he's on that Arizona case, but he knows he's carrying on. There's more articles.
Yeah,
So I
he
think
is.
what we're saying really to all the local leaders of the Church of Jesus Christ, or should they say it's globally, but certainly in Britain, a few key points. It's kind of a carrot and a stick. The stick is you have legal obligations and you are in deep trouble. The church has dropped you in it from a great height because it is not meeting responsibilities. You are therefore not, if you're not being independently proactive with these things, you are extremely vulnerable to accusations and prosecution. Secondly, any male leader in this church would be insane. You are out of your mind if you ever go into a room alone under any circumstances with a young adult or a child. Just don't even do that.
Or an elderly person, or a disabled person, or which could be anyone.
The idea that having an adult that you've got the door ajar with an adult sitting outside somewhere, that is no protection at all. And the church has lied to you that is somehow a mitigation or a protection, because they can't see what you're doing and they can't hear what you're saying specifically. So they might as well not be there. Don't kid yourself that is safeguarding, because you need a second competent adult in the room who's also DBS checked with any conversation you have young people alone, particularly in a situation where you are authorized to talk about sexual things.
Well, just quit talking about sexual things with kids.
Well, yes, But
You know.
the thing is, all of the church handbook points to for the strength of youth as what the adults and the children, church handbook says that. And in that book, despite all their other rhetoric, it insists that young people must talk to their bishop about any sexual thoughts, any use of pornography, any masturbation. They must talk to their bishop as soon as possible. So they're telling them they have to talk to the bishop. And the guidance for the bishop is don't go asking these questions, but, and this is the big but if the young person is concerned and talks to you about them, then you go for it. You know, you have to carte blanche. So, and so it's a vicious circle. There is no extra protection while they're pretending it. So so that's the stick. You are failing in your legal protection, and it doesn't matter that the church has authorized this for you. They have no protection. But you personally, all it takes is for a young person to make an accusation of what you did and said in that interview. Your marriage will be in danger, your professional reputation, your family could fall apart under accusations that will be impossible to disprove because there was no other young adult in the room. Don't put yourself at risk. Doesn't matter what the church policies are. They're delusional. They are not competent to be telling you what to do. You protect yourself. I mean, that should be the overriding thought for any responsible adult in that role, regardless of church policy, belief, or trust. The positives,
I'm going to come to you guys.
carrot.
Sorry,
could I,
so Peter, would I be able to get you to wrap that up in your closing thoughts?
Because this is my closing thoughts.
We do.
Okay. So the carrot is, you can do this. My stake's already done it. They will give it to you for free. You can get a policy off the shelf. Even if you don't, if your stake won't do it in your ward, what else, you know.
Yeah.
Protect yourself, and it's free and it's easy. In Britain, you can get the DBS checks for free because you're a voluntary organisation. You can get the annual professional safeguarding training because you're a voluntary organisation from the local council. They'll be more than happy to offer that. And if you ask around, you've probably already got people professionally qualified in the stake anyway to deliver all the training you need. So there is not even a financial cost involved. But if there is, they can afford it. There is no reason not to do this better. Every other church in your community is. Do you want to be the one who's not? It's embarrassing.
Thank you so much, my dear friend who is doing incredible work in the background too. And I really appreciate what you shared in your previous podcast on safeguarding. So thank you. You know, this weekend I got to sit right at this spot with my mum while abuse was disclosed to my mother for the first time. And it's hard. It's really, really hard. And her response was, sort of not denial, but, why didn't you, the abused person, tell me? Why didn't you feel safe to tell me? I feel really hurt that no one trusted me. And, my mother, with her wonderful wide open heart, and trying to protect her own wounded heart and cope with the horror of what she was hearing, needed to make it about her. And we were able to have conversations and support the person who was disclosing the abuse. And it became this wonderful healing moment. But I want to just stress that as human beings, when abuse is disclosed to us, we're not born prepared for this. There's a work that needs to be done there. And as much as the church, its attempts is to help us live good Christian lives, as much as its attempts to help us prepare to make decisions that we're going to make throughout our lives, it in no way helps us to know what to do when someone discloses abuse to us. There is a work that's to be done there. As we work out how to be humans who can hold space for each other's vulnerability, as things are shared that cause pain and hurt, can destroy families, have destroyed lives. Let's not make it about our pride and our reaction of having to defend and protect ourselves. Let's not make it about what should have happened or what the person's motives may or may not be. We have charities who are literally waiting for you to get in touch. We have members who are waiting for you as leaders to say, okay, here's the plan. Here's what we want to do. Tell us they are waiting to have these conversations. We want to be able to highlight the excellent work that's being done out there. And we are really looking forward to a time when we can do that. And we will do it.
Yeah,
every positive step forward, we're going to do it.
Yeah.
In the meantime, we invite you to be able to go and take a look at what we're currently saying in black and white. It's all on the website. We do have a petition. We do have an open letter, which is to the church. So it is for your attention, whatever level that you serve at. But we are especially, asking the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints to make changes. While we do that, while we have this website that is currently up and running, it has a massive hole in it at the moment. We haven't put any suggestions on about what you should do if you experience abuse. And we're going to put some links in the show notes. But right now, if you are in danger or you know someone who's in danger, you call in the UK, the number is 999 or 101 is the Northern Urgent number. In America, 911. Friends, colleagues, guys in our chat family, if you can put up any links. If you are not feeling safe, there are organisations which are waiting to help you. Going to your bishop is not an organisation that's going to keep you safe if you're experiencing trauma right now. What we want to be able to do is have a church organisation that can tell you where you can go. We need our organisation to be safe. We need it to be safe for all members, especially those who are vulnerable. And so what we're doing right now is we're working with charities, lawyers, people with incredible background in training, policymakers, decision makers. Oh my goodness, we are having it's so educational for us too. And what we're doing is we're shaping some training so that you can use it. If you want to contact Canterbury Stake and see what they're doing, fantastic. Please go ahead and do that. If you want to contact any of the regulatory organisations who will help you just go ahead and get started, please go ahead and do that. But we are going to be working with you. We are going to be inviting some people on in the next few weeks to share with you what some of those conversations will look like. We're going to gather together some people who are interested. If you would like to stay tuned to this channel, if you want to be part of some Zoom workshops that are going to start shaping what some of that training is going to look like. We are hoping that we can offer some solutions here. And that we can be a safe place to land, whether you're a church leader or whether you're someone who is experiencing trauma themselves. We are hoping to be able to signpost you to the best possible practice. We are not experts, but oh my goodness, we are calling in the cavalry because we are taking this very, very seriously. You guys are called and set apart to do this work. Please, take us up on our offer. We're here to help. So any wrapping up final thoughts that you guys want to share, and then we'll say our good nights. So Peter, I'll come to you. Are you going to say?
If I can go first,
you go first, Alana. Please do.
Sorry, that's our now half an hour late.
No, that would be wonderful.
So I don't know. It's not really. It was just something that came to me there as a little thought. Oh, sorry, let me get rid of this off the screen. Can't see beautiful Peter's face. I had a little thought that came to me there. It's not anything major or wow, but it's just something that I would ask the church to think about. And that as a parent or a grandparent, would you send your child to school or to some outward activity knowing that none of the teachers are DBS checked, that there is no safeguarding in place? Because I know that I certainly wouldn't. That's what you are doing every week. Your children or grandchildren attend church. You're allowing them to get into a place that is not safe. We don't know who's coming in and out of the church. We don't know who the new members are, what their background is, because these checks are not in place. So just that's all I really want to say is just think about that. Would you allow your child to go to school or to another activity where there are volunteers without them having any form of background check? Because I know I certainly wouldn't. My child would not be attending school if I thought for a minute And I know it's not foolproof. I've always said that. It's not always foolproof. Things still happen, but at least you know that the proper safeguarding measures are put in place. So just think about that for a minute. You know, like we keep saying, we're not out to attack the church. We just want to make it a safer place for our children.
I love
And
it.
I'll leave you guys at that. And I'm really sorry that I need to dash. But
On behalf of us all, good night to you,
Good night.
Alana. Good night to Dave.
Good night.
Sleep, sweet little one. We love you, and know, Daisy, that we're doing all we can to keep you safe. Okay, girl.
Love what you said there, Alana.
Sarah.
Love, yeah.
Oh no, do you know what, Sarah? Can I come to you last? Because I'm
You can
actually
come
going
to me last.
Yeah, would that be okay? Let's
Okay.
have Peter.
Well, just kind of what I said. I'm certainly backing up what Alana said. I think we've got to, as a church, stop being too naive. It's that simple. You know, we're constantly patting ourselves on the back for being the only true church and everything's lovely here. But with that comes really intellectual laziness and naivety that we trust too much. And you can't trust simple human beings to suddenly be different just because it's the church. And there's always a win-win here. There's a way to do all this kindly, compassionately, responsibly, without being awful about it or anything like that, because all the other churches are doing it already. You know, it's just like, have a reality check. It's so frustrating. So you're not being disloyal to the church by wanting to protect children. Like, really, if honestly you are disciples of Jesus Christ, what would Jesus do? And Jesus was very clear about what he would do. He would take our safeguarding imitation policy, put a millstone around it, and throw it into the sea. Because he said so already. Because it openly endangers children. It makes them incredibly vulnerable to predators, and it does. They are harmed. I mean, as soon as you start asking around in any ward or stake about people's experience with abuse and inappropriate situations, the horror stories are rampant. I mean, everywhere. This happens. It's real. It's happening now. And I think on the larger scale, our church is about to be publicly utterly destroyed reputationally, just like the Catholic Church was, because exactly the same journalists are discovering exactly the same dysfunctions in the church. But as I said in my last podcast episode, the additional complication here, which makes it even worse for us, is that our clergy are not an entity in themselves. Our clergy are also the lawyers. Our clergy are because we have, you know, everyone being in roles in clergy. Our clergy are the politicians. It's not a Catholic situation where these different professions were covering for each other. It's the same person. Anyone who served in a bishopric or stake presidency, who's now in a senior political role or business role or police role or legal role, anyone can say to them, any journalist can say, did you go into a room alone with young people and ask them about their sexual thoughts and shame them about it and discuss it at length? And who has served in those callings wouldn't have to admit yes. So we've made all of them incredibly vulnerable. And particularly, you might think the world has changed. Well, that's always been creepy. It's nothing new. But particularly the world is much more sensitive to these issues now. But the church has watched the Roman Catholic Church go up in flames for years, particularly in America, and done almost nothing to learn any of the lessons from that. And we're still not got basic safeguarding. The Catholics are doing better than us now. I mean, that's awful.
Oh, absolutely.
With a similar culture of confessional interviews, you know, so there is quite a parallel there. We're extremely vulnerable, and we've just got to wake up and realize this is an urgent issue. This is now all over the global news. This is coming for us. It's coming for us in Britain, as you've been highlighting, Jane. There are British government investigations into ongoing cover-up and perpetuation of abuse in churches. It's happening now. It's happening to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and the stories are going to be splattered all over the papers. So
and
at
we're
least
already having to
protect
make
yourselves.
decisions about
Yeah.
reporting on that as a
Yeah.
podcast. I
Yeah.
mean, it's
Yeah.
just it's awful.
Mm.
You know, this is currently unfolding.
Mm.
Sarah Elizabeth, what you thinking? Take us out, girl.
It is. We're well past the time when the church can sit and make excuses about it's taking a long time, people are busy. Oh, well, we don't really need to do this. We do not have infallible inspiration in this church. We do not have infallible leaders in this church. We have the very ingredients that make abuse considerably more likely. We have a culture of obedience, of deference, of being told you must listen to your leaders, you must obey your leaders. We have a culture of shaming people who step out of line and question and challenge. And all of those are ingredients that make abuse so much more likely and so much harder for people to disclose and share. We also have a huge number of people in this church in leadership positions that are willing to just carry on doing what they're told because they don't want to step out of line and say, that is not safe and I'm not doing it. And what we need now is bishops and stake presidents to decide that they are not issuing any further callings to anybody until that person is DBS checked, because they put themselves at a legal vulnerability if they do so. And the church are not going to be there paying their legal fees if this blows up. They need to stop asking people to serve in any capacity until they have had a DBS check on them. Parents and carers need to consider very seriously whether they should allow their children to go to youth, to go to activities, to go to classes, unless these DBS and training and policies are in place. And I think the time has come now. Yes, we've always said from day one, we don't want to harm, we don't want to destroy, we don't want to tear down, we want to build, we want to work with the church, we want to make this as good as we can. And we stand by that because we mean it. But we also need to say to parents, you have the right and the responsibility to protect your child. And the only way you can protect your child is by saying very, very clearly to the leader of the ward, I am not prepared for my child to come to youth night unless I am present. My child is not going to that youth class, that primary class, that activity, unless I am present, until such times as you can reassure me you have completed every possible step that a reasonable person would take for safeguarding. And I think
which I'll just add includes training, not just DBS checks, but
100%.
professional safeguarding training. Both
It
of those
includes
things.
all training, information, DBS, the whole lot. Proper policies, proper procedures, safeguarding leads. It includes a whole lot. And I think we've just got to say to people now, bishops and stake presidents, you can't just sit there and say, well, I was waiting to be told what to do, because that is not a defence. It's not a defence before God. It's not a defence in law, and it's not a moral defence. You cannot sit there and say, well, I'm waiting for Salt Lake to send me a letter to tell me what to do. No, that letter might never come. You have to do what you have to do. And we just, and I'm going to get a T-shirt one day that says, I don't believe what you say, I believe what you do, because we cannot believe and trust the church are going to do this, in that we cannot take our foot off the pedal on what we are doing here until such times as we see the church shifting and doing it.
Thank you so much to both of you. You know, this weekend I got to, my mother is a member of the Catholic faith, and I got to spend a lot of time in her faith community. And you know, it was incredible to me. The first experience I've had in a Catholic worship, although I hang out with Catholics all the time and we do study groups and things, they're pretty badass. The priest, who was a missionary priest, had stood in and he referenced historic child abuse and the church's response, and had referenced it in a sort of repentance type framing. the first time I've ever heard that happen from a pulpit, it was incredible to me, not just in word, but when we first walked into that building, the safeguarding poster is right there. Here is what you do if you're experiencing abuse. And that's, I mean, the tiniest thing, the small changes that lead to keeping someone safe and helping me feel reassured that this is a safe place to go. As Sara pointed out, my kid stays with me in church classes. We just don't do it. Church doesn't feel safe for so many people, and that's the message that we've gotten over and over again. Now, what I'm really excited about is not only have we heard incredible things, I think we're making it loud and clear. There are problems, and there are problems at a level that can get the church literally shut down here in the UK, and there's no messing with that. You lose your charitable status and all of those kind of things if you're not doing your damn job that you were called to do. You accepted this calling, so it's on you. But the fact that for the first time we are seeing across the board members, ex-members, people who are disaffiliated with, people who stand with us, we are seeing everyone with one voice, Book of Mormon style, with one voice saying, we want safeguarding. That's what we want. We want us to be, we want to do better. So we're excited for what that journey will look like. And Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, I am sure that you are taking this as seriously, or you want to take this as seriously as we do. Balls in your court, but we're going to keep working with you to help. Sorry, Peter and Sara.
Can I just say, I just think, so, Sara, you really hit the nail on the head there. The church is shrinking rapidly. Bishops and stake leaders are desperate to hold on to their youth and children. There's hardly any left. Desperate. It would only take one or two families in a stake saying, we will no longer send our children to primary or youth activities until you DBS check people. They will move heaven and earth to make it happen. I think that is it. This is an easy win. If you think you're powerless in this church, you make that stand, you will just watch the walls crumble. Because they're desperate to hold on to some youth. At the moment, more than 80% leave by age 30, and it's worse than that now. So absolutely use that power. Just say that, because it's completely reasonable. Who could argue with that? But it would change everything. So please lift up your voices, ordinary members who are parents. Just bring that to the table and watch things change fast. It would be that simple.
And absolutely, people stop accepting callings and don't extend callings until you know you are safe to do that. And those two things in themselves, the problem solved, isn't it?
That could change it all. That would change it all.
Problem solved if we get people to do that. And actually, one person did say to me last week that their son will not be going to youth camp unless they can be confident these checks are in place.
When my mother experienced the disclosures of abuse over this weekend, her horror was that, instinctively, but I was right there. I would have seen this. This can't be. We want to respond with denial and horror, because we've said this time and time again. We are focusing on keeping vulnerable people safe from not the new member who's lurking, waiting to come in, that we don't know much about. I mean, that obviously that's a huge issue. But for the most part, when people are in positions of trust, the people that we love, the people that we care about, that's where the dangers lie. We need to do as much as possible to, like Peter says, that we are so trusting as a people, and we're also a very closed in and isolated people. Abuse flourishes in these situations. Every person we have ever reached out to or has reached out to us about this subject, about our safeguarding project, has asked, how can I help? And that's the attitude that we need to see members, those who have left the church, those who are out there in the community, those who have never been affiliated with the church and are just really interested in keeping children safe in your community. Let's all stand together. Let's all get behind this. We want to rally the podcasters, all of the troops, and really start driving this message home. Now, there are some actions that are taking place this week in Salt Lake City at church headquarters. I want you to keep an eye out for those, please. Can you, if you're there, give us a shout out, send us some photographs. We want to see how you're getting on. We will be with you in spirit. But if you and if you want to know more about that, we will send you some notes in the show links. Thank you so much to all of you who have been standing with us, and we call on you now. Go ahead, start sending out those letters, start signing the petitions, share it where you can. If you need our help, reach out to us through our website or on social media, and we will be here to help. But you don't need our set letters. You guys can ask the questions yourself. If you want them, they're there, but we want to empower you to start raising your voice. People are just waiting for that. So thank you so much for being with us tonight. We love you all, and we will be back with you soon. Oh, before I go, Peter, we are going to be hanging with the Brit Vengers on our next episode. We're not sure when that's going to be, but within the next week, we're doing a pre-Sunstone Brit Vengers.
We get stoned.
Right, I am.
What are you doing, Janet?
Grasses. We're going to be hanging out with all of the Brit Vengers, and so we're going to be having some fun before we'll tell you all what we've got planned for Sunstone there. Okay, good night, everyone. And if you need us, you know where we all are. And as always, we bless your journey. Good night everyone.
Stay safe, everyone.